Welcome to the Stepmom Side with Alicia, the podcast for stepmoms ready to create the life they want and one they actually have a say in. Here we talk all things stepmom life and just a little bit more. Leave the superficial conversations at the door and get ready for perspective shifts and actionable advice to help you on your way to creating the life you want, one step at a time. Hi, Soul. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Alicia. Thanks for having me on.
Oh my gosh, I'm super excited that you're here. I don't typically have like a lot of dads on, but then like your angle is interesting because you are a dad, but then also you've created an app to help with co-parenting. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Not too much because we're going to get into it a little bit as well.
Yeah. So I'm the founder of the Best Interest app for co-parents, and I'm also a father. And as many of us who get into this line of work, I experienced a very challenging dynamic post-divorce. And so in that, I grew, I became stronger, I learned a lot about myself. If you'd told me 6 years ago that I was going to build an app to help co-parents in a life-changing way, I wouldn't have believed you. But here I am, and it is changing people's lives and for the better. And I'm really excited about that.
I love that you named it Best Interest.
Yes, you get it, right? It's
Yeah,
as a co-parent who's been to family court, you know that term. That's what the court system uses all the time. And sometimes you're like, are they really looking out for the best interests of the kids?
right. Yeah.
So when I thought of the name that I wanted to give to this company, my customers are technically the parents,
Mhm.
but really it's the kids. The kids are the ones that benefit when we are acting from a calmer, more peaceful place, when we're able to stay present with them. They're the ones that benefit. So it is about the best interests of the kids.
Okay, so let's talk about the court system for a minute and how wonderful it is and how
Oh,
it's
it's the best. Who could
so
have
great.
devised a better system?
Right. Yeah, it works so well. So can you tell me a little bit about how you figured out that it wasn't that you were failing, it was that the system was failing you? Like
Yeah.
what moments led you to think like, wait, actually this isn't me. It's just how the system was working or not.
Yeah, I mean, I have my personal story, and I also have the story of the co-parents that I've worked with, met along the way, groups that I've belonged to. The system doesn't isn't designed with really in any understanding of the heart of the experience of being a co-parent. It's really challenging. It's really, really hard to to go through this experience of being in a relationship with someone that for whatever reason you've decided don't want to be in that relationship anymore, or they don't.
Mhm.
And now suddenly you think, okay, well, I'll just walk away from this relationship. Oh gosh, you have kids. You can't
Just
do
kidding.
that. You're stuck. And so then it's like, how do you navigate this incredibly intense relationship with someone that may or may not have your best interests at heart? And how do you navigate it? And how do you grow? How do you shift into the next chapter of also then being a solo parent? Like that's hard enough. So there's so many challenges here, and then the court system on top of it. Honestly, I don't think that they get it. They try to pretend like there's no emotions here. They try to pretend like, to the best performance is when you're showing up devoid and drained of emotions. I mean, gosh, this is big. This is triggering all of our deep traumas and all of our deep senses of safety. We walk into that courtroom and we're terrified that they're gonna take the kids away, right?
Mhm.
And so if I can come in and help in the way that I can to one help parents navigate and cope and feel more peaceful in that experience, but also to avoid having to use the court system, then I feel like I've really won.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And I think that there's so many layers when it comes to going to court. I think people are like, oh yeah, I know how it works. There's like a judge and a jury and they decide things or I don't know, whatever. And there's all these weird words that you've never heard before until you go through a divorce. And then like there's family law, right? There's family court. And like you said, that's so emotional. Even if you want the divorce, it's still an emotional thing. It's still traumatic. Now you go from like having your kids to not having your kids and all of the things that come with it. and then add in this new circus that you have to go to the court and figure out how that works.
It's a whole different, yeah, it's so weird to go into the courtroom, have this experience of your ex, who might be using a lot of legal jargon, or their lawyer is, and
Hmm.
attacking you in a certain way. And then, oh gosh, you got to do the exchange later that afternoon and
Yeah.
everything's happy and rosy. You got to put on the best face for the kids. Gosh, that's the hardest thing ever.
Yeah. And you're just like, I don't even know what's happening. Can
Yeah.
you tell me a little bit about like, oh wait, let me think. I'm gonna phrase this. What do you wish people knew about how courts trigger like an emotional response?
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean,
Or how just like the system does?
I think I think that it really starts with the attorneys. I
Okay.
There are so many good attorneys out there, and I don't mean to bash the profession, but even if you talk to attorneys, they'll admit that it's problematic.
Hmm.
You walk into, for a lot of co-parents, you're approaching divorce. The first thought is, well, I got to lawyer up. I got to protect myself. I got to protect my assets. I got to protect the kids. Well, you walk in with that attitude with an attorney, and you're just getting ready to be taken advantage of. Just honestly, that's what happens. If you're walking in with fear, they're going to trigger that fear. They're going to incite you into taking action, which increases billable hours. They're not going to hold space. In fact, lawyers are not trained to hold space. So you shouldn't be bringing your challenges to them. And I advocate for co-parents to approach this entire system with more pause. Start with a coach and have them give you an idea of who to bring on next. Think of lawyers and the courts as a tool that can be employed rather than the only thing. Because if you think about it as the only thing, then you're not going to get what you want. Everyone's going to walk away feeling like a loser, and you'll be a lot poorer for it.
I love that you said get a coach because yeah, and whenever people come to me, they're like, "Oh, Alicia, I don't need a stepmom coach, or I don't need, we don't need couples coaching because I already have a therapist." And I'm like, "Okay, let me ask you, does your therapist have any experience in a blended family?" And they're like, "No." And I'm like, "Okay, that's probably actually not beneficial." And
Yeah.
I would say the same thing for a lawyer, unless they've been through a divorce, they don't understand the dynamics, right? Like it's just like very black and white to them, very textbook. Here's what we do, and here's what, the state of whatever has already done. Would you
There,
agree?
yeah, there's a reason why most coaches you talk to, in fact, the only coaches that I would highly recommend using would be those that have gone through it themselves. But that's
Hmm.
that's a very common story, is
Hmm.
someone who's been through the trenches and says, "Oh my God, that sucked. Let me help other people in the
Yeah.
same way that I wasn't." And I think that that is a really great place to start from when you're approaching this. There's so many unknowns. There's so many potential challenges. I mean, even just looking at the parenting plan, I always advocate starting with a coach in this process, because they can tell you where to go next, and they've been there, done that, so they understand what you don't know yet. And as a parent, even knowing, like, if you're getting divorced when your kids are younger, you don't know what it's going to be like when they're in junior high. How could you possibly know what to write in a parenting plan about extracurriculars? You're thinking about preschool, right? So having a coach to guide you in that process and say, okay, you need to be thinking about this in advance, can be really a savings. And the other thing I hear a lot, and I remember I said it to myself in the beginning, I don't need a coach because I'm already going to be spending so much money on my attorney. That's the wrong way of looking at it. The right coach can save you money.
Hmm. And I think that you're right in the sense that when you have young kids and you're in preschool, or you're in kindergarten, or you're in elementary school, you're not thinking about junior high, but then you're also thinking about what if your kids go to college? Who's funding that?
Yeah.
Or even people have put in like if we're splitting like how who's paying for like their wedding, how is all of this being funded? Or now they want to go on the spring break trip, like who's doing that?
Yeah.
And now they're on a travel team, how are we splitting that? What does that look like? And it's
Yeah.
not things that you think about when your kids are 4, 5, 7, like really, really young.
Yeah, and I would imagine that many of your stepmom listeners can relate to this idea of kind of stepping into a system that's already broken
Hmm.
and then trying to fix it. That's hard. It's so much easier earlier on, before the judgment, before the parenting plan has been written, to fix some of those mistakes. Otherwise, you might be left with a really broken system that is hard to adjust for.
Yeah, I see sometimes that stepmoms step into a situation where there's no formal parenting plan.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so it's very fluid, right? Like it's just like a verbal handshake of like, hey, we'll do this and we'll do that. And then now that there's a new partner in the situation, it really goes sideways really, really quickly because that verbal handshake is no longer valid. And
Yep.
it's being used against them that they've got a new partner and whatever. And you're just like, yeah, you have to get that ironed out.
Such a common story.
Yeah, right. I'm sure you
That
hear it a
new
lot too, especially.
partners.
Yeah, you're like along for a ride. I always joke with
Yeah.
them, like, it's definitely a roller coaster. And at some point, you have to step off
Yeah.
at like the next low and be like, okay, wait, we're doing something different. Hold on. Let's recalibrate here. What's happening?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
in a court system, like, what are common, or I don't know if you can see, like, on the backside, I'm sure you can, of your app, like, what are common mindset traps that parents fall into? And, like, how do you think they can reframe them to just get, like, a little bit more peace?
Yeah, I think maybe stepping back and if I may talk a little bit more about how best interest works, because I think that that's I'm sure many of your listeners have heard about co-parenting apps,
Mhm.
and our family wizard, talking parents. You hear these terms a lot, and maybe use them or don't. I was an our family wizard user in the beginning, and it helps to the extent that it records everything that's going on. It keeps communication structured, but it philosophically is really more about getting things documented so you can take them back to court. And if you're the kind of person like me that I don't really trust the court system all that much, and I would prefer not to go there if I don't have to, it's not the best system. And so from the beginning, when I was envisioning best interest and what I wanted it to become, is I wanted it to support you regardless of whether or not you're going into the court system. Of course, we record everything that goes on between co-parents, but we're protecting you from your co-parent's communication. We're allowing you to set boundaries with your co-parent without needing to get the courts involved at all. And how we do that is by every time your uh, ex sends you a message, we're processing it. We're looking at what is being said and why. We have the communication history between the two of you, and if they're saying things that are going to trigger you, that are toxic, that are threats, like threats of court, we're going to strip that out, because that's not something you need to be a good co-parent. What you need to know is, what time is pickup? Did Johnny forget his backpack? Like the fundamentals of co-parenting, the child-focused things you need to know. Everything else, honestly, just noise, and it's going to probably incite more of those toxic cycles.
Mhm.
So we free you up from receiving that type of communication. You receive only what you need to know. And then there is more to the message. We indicate that. You can go in later when you're feeling more resourced, maybe when the kids are dropped off at school or you're with your therapist, and you can go in and you can do the processing. Because I also think that's an important aspect of going through this is we need to heal. We need to learn. We need to grow. These are sometimes our ex can sometimes be our best teacher.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I think that to me, that is the fundamental difference, is that best interest is designed to live outside of the court system. You can take the reports in if you need to, but we're really trying to help our clients reduce conflict and hopefully avoid the court system later on.
Yeah, I love that you guys have that neurological buffer like built in with the AI of like, you get this nasty message like, hey, you insert all of these different names, and all you get is pickup time is at this time and here's the location. Or hey, so and so forgot this, that, and the other. Can you bring it over or whatever? I think that's amazing because yeah, you're not always in the place to just take on this attack. And then a lot of times your nervous system isn't regulated. And so then you just respond with an attack, right? Or your insert whatever. And then if like in our situation, if my husband got a message, we were on a group chat, so then I would get it too. So then I'm like, you know what you need to say? You need to say this. And I'm sure you have no idea what I'm talking about, right? Like you would never experience that. But like you need to say this here, like let me message it. Like I'll write back. And then now both of you are, it's just a terrible situation. So I love
Yeah.
the neurological buffer there of like, okay, here's what you need to know. And then later on, if you want to go back and read more, there's more. But don't
Yeah.
go right now.
it saves you from yourself, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes when we get into that habit of responding quickly, responding from a triggered or unconscious place, we're going to get in trouble later, right? Those
Hmm.
messages that are defensive or attacks back don't look great in court. And so by you adjusting, and this is the magic of best interest, right? Is that you are going to receive a message that, let's just do an example. Alicia, you and I are co-parenting, and maybe I'm the more toxic one, right? So I'm going to send you a message, bring up the past. Alicia, because you're always late, so forgetful. I'm reminding you to pick up the kids from soccer practice at 3 p.m. today. Well, that's probably going to be triggering because you're never late, right? And so you respond
Hmm.
back in that way, right? And then we are 30 messages later, both super triggered, and no one's staying present with the kids. That's not helpful for anyone. But instead, since you're a best interest user, the message that comes through to you is, so would like you to pick up the kids at 3 p.m. That's it. And so that message, then you are going to respond differently.
Hmm.
You didn't have to read a book on Biff or Grey Rock or anything like that, or do the emotional processing necessary. In that moment, you can respond in a very factual and concise way. And you're just going to say, okay, I'm going to receive that. Well, maybe I'm still feeling kind of spicy, but I have to then change my dynamic, right? I don't get that hit that maybe I was looking for. And so it just changes the whole dynamic. When you start showing up differently, regardless of how that is, it has to change the dynamic.
Yeah, and you can't fight with somebody that doesn't fight back.
Yeah. Yeah. They try.
Yeah.
I like the term. I was speaking with someone once who called it the velociraptor attacking the electric fence.
Oh yeah, that's
And that is
great.
such a good, yeah, because it's like they're always going to try. They're going to try the boundary again. Is it still on? Is it
Mhm.
still on?
Zap. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And to speak about like just growth in general in this arena, it requires so much growth, especially if you've partnered with somebody that's happening. Like of my husband and I, like I swear he has ice water in his veins. Thank God, because mine like runs lava sometimes. Not so much anymore. I've learned a lot in our 15 years. I've learned a lot. But he would be like, I don't care that there's all of this other personal stuff. I feel like he was the neurological buffer, like for us. And I'm not even like in the situation, if you will. Like, this isn't my situation, but I'm like, now I'm in it. Like, I'm putting myself in the middle of it. And so, my stepkids, just so you know, like, are out of the house currently, like, they are grown and flown. So,
Yeah.
but when they were still like in the house, I was just like, how can you just be like, okay, yeah, I'll pick them up at 6? Like, don't you see all this other stuff? And he was like, it doesn't, like you said, it's just noise. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It like whatever. Who cares?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that can be a healthy way to handle a almost unwinnable situation.
Yeah.
And it's challenging as the non-bio parent then to hold that too, right? Even if he's able to cope, like you gotta remember what happened and
Yeah. You're
and
gonna
hold
put
the
her in her
anger.
place? Are you kidding me? Yeah.
Right.
I'm sure you've heard
Right.
it all. Do you have
Yeah.
any like do you see any patterns? Like do you see trend items that come up on best interest? Like for high
Yeah.
conflict situations?
Yeah, for sure. And that's a really good question. Uh, running a startup like this, we're fielding a lot of really challenging communication. The last time I looked at the stat, we've filtered like 45,000 toxic messages that our users never saw.
That's amazing.
Um, and I am so glad I don't have to read those messages because they're awful. And people in these situations talk really poorly to one another, and that makes me so sad. But I'm really glad that we've been able to reshape these dynamics. Um, people, it's yeah, I think that's what I would say to that. There's not anything specific that comes up. It's all the typical stuff that you hear in co-parenting where people are just blaming and shaming and trying every way they can to get into your veins.
Yeah.
And this is just another tool that can help you cope with that situation.
Yeah, I think it's really great because yeah, just like that perspective, like if I say that to stepmoms, like they're just saying things to get to you. They want that reaction And they're
Yeah.
like, well, we need to react. I'm like, no, we don't react. I mean, we need to work on responding. Reacting is like when you're just like a knee-jerk reaction. But if we respond and we, read this, digest it, like actually digest it. Okay, what do we need to know from this? And then come back an hour, a couple hours, or maybe 24 hours later if it's not something that's urgent and respond. And we've had a
Yeah.
chance to just like go through it. Like, let's do that. But I
Yeah.
think that sometimes people think that a reactive response is logical in the moment. And I'm like,
It, it's almost impossible
yeah.
sometimes. I slowness is built into the best interest app because I think that's one of the most healing tools that can happen in a co-parenting relationship because you may have created a dynamic in the marriage or even in the divorce where there's a lot of decisions that need to that feel like they need to be made with urgency, and so you're constantly going at each other and basically fighting even though it's not in person anymore, it's over text. That's not healthy for anyone. It keeps you both trapped. And so, with best interest, one of the interesting features is that you can maybe for the first time set a boundary with your co parent and say, I'm only going to receive one message from you every day. Now, if you tried that in real life, many of our exes would be like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna not
Watch
listen to
this.
that. Yeah, watch how many. I'm gonna double my messages.
Yeah.
See,
Challenge
um,
accepted.
yeah, and that's not helpful. And so best interest will actually let you set the boundary yourself. You don't have to let them know. You just say, I'm only available for one message a day. And if that were the only aspect of the feature, that would actually be kind of dangerous. Because what if your ex sent you, oh, Johnny's in the hospital. I need your help right now. Like, gosh, we want to be available when there's an emergency or an urgent change or something. We need to know. You set that boundary and then you let the AI understand the messages that come in and let you know if there's anything urgent. So we're processing all the messages in real time as they come in. And if there is something that's truly urgent or something that is an emergency situation, we're going to bubble that up. We're going to allow you to set that boundary, but we're going to make sure that you're informed of anything that's urgent.
I think that's amazing. I didn't realize that you had the boundary of like, hey, I'm only going to be available for so many messages. I think that is absolutely brilliant. Well done.
Yeah, it slows things down. And I think the slowness is that's one of the biggest things that I've learned in my life that most everything, even if it's framed and wrapped up in a bow of urgency, can be slowed down. You can respond tomorrow, and it usually helps things. It helps everyone.
Yeah, even if the other party doesn't like it, I completely agree. Like
Yeah.
everyone needs a timeout, especially
Yeah.
when you are like back and forth and 30 messages deep and you can't. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
like, ah. Can you talk a little bit about being the bigger person and or like the difference between being the bigger person and like your emotional well-being? Like what does that look like in difference? Because I think, or emotional avoidance, because I think that sometimes people, stepmoms specifically, are like, I'm exhausted being the bigger person. Is there any sort of AI written into your app about this? Like, okay, I'm going to be the bigger person. I'm going to fall on my sword for this again. Like, why are we always the household that like does all of the things?
I mean, honestly, that's also kind of how it is with
Mhm.
co-parenting and in these high conflict situations. You have to learn how to drop the rope and you have to have the long-term vision that it takes to be able to do that, to know that, oh yeah, this sucks majorly. And yeah, we wish this weren't the case and we wish that things were better, but this is the scenario. And either we can fight and run everyone to the ground, or we can just drop the rope again and again and again and just learn how to be with it. And I know that's not the most fun thing, but that's, I think, the way that helps build peace. And I think that peace is the best goal for everyone in these scenarios. How do we create peace for ourselves? And how do we create peace for our new partners? And how do we create peace for our family and our kids?
Yeah, I think the long game is where it's at. Like, okay, what is our objective? Okay, so like if you're into running, right? Like I'm running a marathon, let's say. I'm not right now. But like let's say that's what I'm doing. And then I just have like a bad day of running. Like I feel off, like maybe I ate weird yesterday or I didn't sleep that great. I just had a bad day. Like I had a bad day today. That doesn't mean that everything's thwarted. Like we can just start over again. Like okay, tomorrow's a new day. We'll try again. So same thing in co-parenting. Like if you everything is going well and then something comes up, like, okay, just a bad everyone has bad days, right? It doesn't mean that
Yeah.
now we hate each other, like now the houses are at war. And no, it's everyone has a bad day. We don't necessarily need to react to that. Like if we get a not so nice message, hopefully it's buffered through like the neurological buffer here with the AI, but like we can respond in a way that's like, okay, and not have to constantly feel like we need to be the bigger person because I see the exact same thing. I'm like, especially as a stepmom, it sucks to be in this role where you're like, I constantly feel like I have to be the bigger person. Like, at what
Yeah.
point do I stop doing that? And I think the same thing, like, you need to be able to find peace within yourself in
Yeah.
this situation. Because my husband would be like, Alicia, happiness is an inside job. And I'm like, if you say that one more time, I think I might lose my mind. Like, I literally, like, hothead soul here, like, hello. But I'm like, no, it's not an inside job. Like, look at if I could change this or that person or this situation or did it. And he'd be like, well, you can't. So what are you going to do? You can like sit here and just be pissed off about everything, or you can be like, okay, I'm choosing to stay. And if I choose to stay, here are the parameters. You don't have to like the
Yeah.
parameters, but that's what they are for right now. And guess what? In a few years, they're going to change, or in 6 months, they're going to change, right? The only constant
Yeah.
is change.
Well, you've hit the nail on the head. I mean, the unfortunate reality is that stepmoms absorb the dysregulation
Mhm.
of their bio parents, the bio parents, and that sucks. It sucks for step parents. Um, Best interest can be a tool to absorb some of that dysregulation and have less of it fall on the step parent. And it really isn't your responsibility as a stepmom or a stepdad to take care of that relationship. Really, it shouldn't be so dysregulated. And I'm sure many of your listeners can relate to seeing and feeling that panic of like, oh my gosh, my partner is super triggered right now because of something they just received, and gosh, our plans are now
Mhm.
out, like that we were going to go on a date and now we're dealing with this, like, fuck. um and if best interest can step in and help reduce some of that and provide more of a buffer and allow your partner to set more of the basically what best interest does is it allows you to set a boundary with your co-parent, not just about when to receive messages or how often, but actually how they talk to you. It's almost as if with this app you can say, you can't talk to me that way anymore,
Mhm.
right? And I think that that is fundamental for changing the experience. The other thing I'll say is that we're all guilty of getting dysregulated.
Mhm.
Um, Somehow our ex, through maybe accumulated years of understanding us, however you want to look at it, they know exactly what buttons to push to get us to do the thing,
Yeah.
and to go into that unconscious place. And every message that you send on best interest is reviewed before it is sent.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if you send a message and you're getting defensive or you're going on the attack, even if the message is filtered coming in, sometimes we can get dysregulated, right? So we're going to review the message. We're going to give you feedback and coaching on the best way to communicate and make sure that your message comes across well, and especially that it comes across well in court. So it protects you from yourself as well.
That's interesting. I like that there's like a buffer going out as well
Yeah.
because I hear from a lot of stepmoms, like if I bring something up to my partner, to my husband, my fiance, whoever it is, they are so defensive to me,
One
like
thing I
immediately.
Yeah, one thing I hear a lot that's an interesting psychological trick that using best interest can do is that you now have, it's as if someone is sitting between you and your co-parent and reviewing the messages for you. And so when you're receiving these messages, maybe you feel a little triggered, right? But you have to do a quick gut check and say, well, gosh, this AI that was designed to reduce conflict and understand these sorts of relationships actually thinks this is okay. Maybe I'm feeling a trigger and maybe I shouldn't be. So it kind of helps you get out of your own head a little bit and less often go into your own trigger.
Yeah, I love that, especially like the defensive part. So I like that you guys have the buffer going both ways.
Yeah.
So let's say that we're in it and I'm going to send you a nasty message back because I'm always late and I'm never picking the kids up on time and I'm supposed to be picking them up at 3. So if I go
Yeah.
to send it and then the AI comes back and is like, hey, dummy, like that's not a good idea. Does it come up with like, here's how I would word this differently and then I can like hit okay and send it? Or does it give me a chance to rework it myself?
The AI absolutely will never send anything for you. And
Okay.
then there has to be a human in the middle. And
Okay.
so when we review your message and give you feedback, you always have the option to take the feedback and send the suggested response, or to say, no, I want to,
I
right?
want to
And
amplify this. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, he needs to know, right?
Because
You
that's
can
always
still
good.
send whatever you want.
Okay.
You're in control. But if your co-parent is also a best interest user, they have their own sovereignty. So when your message comes in where you bypass the filter, they have a filter and that message goes to the filter. So they're going to receive the filtered message. So you might have decided to bypass and say whatever you want, but they still have the ability to be calm and peaceful.
Oh, there's so many checks and balances. I like it. This is really
Yeah.
well thought out.
Well, it comes from a philosophical belief that everyone should be able to set their own boundaries and have sovereignty.
Hmm.
So each co-parent can choose how they want to be interacted with and how to interact. It's really up to them.
Hmm. So let's say that I'm going to sign up for this because I can't communicate with you really well and
Yeah.
because I'm the hothead.
Yeah.
So do only I have it or is like if I'm going to buy it, is it just me? Is it do I am I buying for both of us? Like how does that work?
That's a great question. That's one of our unique differentiators. All the other co-parenting apps, if you want to use it or your court ordered to use one, you both have to pay, you both have to sign up, you both have to agree to use it.
Good luck.
Seriously. Sometimes it's hard enough to get them to agree to anything, let alone employing an app that's going to reduce the conflict or put a filter on their
And
mouth,
I'm paying
right?
a ton of money for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Best Interest is the only co parenting app that allows you to download the app. Say you're experiencing a lot of pain right now. You can download the app today and you can experience peace today without your co parent even using the app. And how we do that is the courts only really care that you are open to communication. They don't care how you're being communicated with. If there's no existing orders, there's nothing dictated. You just have to have an open line of communication, understandably. You give them a new phone number. You can say, text me here. They don't know you're using an app. They don't know you have that tool. They start texting you with the new number as if you changed your number, and
Mhm.
all the messages flow through the app. When you respond to messages in the app, they're sent out through text message. So your co parent doesn't have to change their behavior at all, but your experience changes dramatically. So it's the only app that supports that one-sided type of communication. The other thing that's different is that if you do happen to get your co-parent on board and maybe that they're open to it, but they just really don't want to pay for it, they don't value shields or whatever, you both download the app and you can pay for the shield if you want it. And they can just use the app for messaging for free. There's no charge for basic messaging.
Oh, get out. That's amazing. I guess I didn't
Yeah.
like dig that super deep on it. Okay, so let
Yeah.
me just make sure that I've got it clear for the people that are listening that are like, wait, hold on, I was in the middle of multitasking. What did he just say? So when you download the app, you pay for it. So it gives
Yep.
you the app gives you like a different number. Is that what I'm understanding correctly? And so they can just text
Correct.
this new
Yeah.
number.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yep.
amazing. Yeah. So
Yep.
they text this new number that goes directly to the app that's on the phone that you use that has your
Yep.
original number.
And you use the app and
Mhm.
you communicate with your co-parent through the app. You benefit from having a structured history that you could take to court if you ever needed to.
Mhm.
Everything is, in a way that the courts understand and respect.
Mhm.
And then when you send a message back, it goes through text. So you're benefiting from the shield and also from the tone guardian
Mhm.
that's reviewing your messages. Your communication is super clean, and then your co-parent keeps on doing what they're doing.
Yeah, because you're right. You have to get them to agree to it. I mean, you guys obviously aren't getting along this way. You separated anyway, right? And then now, like, hey, by the way, in the best interest of the kids, like, let's parent, like, co-parent together. And communicate about all the things. And they're like, I'm not doing any of that. Yeah, right. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
recipe for a beautiful disaster, right? Like put the blender on without the lid.
Well, and some people might say, well, then just go to court and get a court order and get a co-parenting app, ordered. That's
In 2 years.
expensive,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. I mean, if you end up going to court, oftentimes a lot more comes with it than just that one request. So, in general, I think that I believe in empowering our users to use the app from day one and experience peace without needing to get court's involvement.
Yeah, I think that's great because yeah, you don't even know when your court date's going to be. It could be months, it could be a year and a half, it could be however long from now. And then now it's
Yeah.
something completely different and you've just spent however much money. Like, and it wasn't even worth it if you were trying to get child support modified. Like we were at one point, my stepson had moved in full time, and so it was like, is it worth it to get it modified? It was, we just did mediation, but like, is it worth it to get it modified? Like, how much money would we possibly be spending in court versus
Yeah.
how much more time do we have left? And so, yeah,
Yeah.
it's sometimes it's not even worth it to go to court.
Well, and I believe that most conflict between co-parents starts with communication. That 30 long communication back and forth might look somewhat benign on the outside, but that might be the beginning of what ends up being a 3-year court battle.
Mhm.
So if we can help reduce the heat in the very beginning, we might help the co-parents hear one another throughout the whole process and reduce the amount of reliance on that type of conflict.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So when it comes to communication, how does peaceful communication, like early on, help with the kids' emotional development? Or have you seen that play out? Like, what does that
Oh,
look like?
well, I think it's love is presence, I believe.
Hmm.
So the more time that we can dedicate to just being present with our kids, being in the moment with them, gosh, if you've ever seen a little kid, that's all they are. They're in the moment. It's amazing. They're
Yeah.
able to do that without all the things running around their head getting us,
Yeah.
we make ourselves crazy. And in these conflicted situations, I have recollection, it still happens to me, where I will receive a communication, it'll throw me off, and then I'll find myself in my head worrying about things in the future, worrying about things in the past, regretting things. That's not helpful. It doesn't allow me to be a good dad. And I think that it starts with us. So the more that we can maintain our regulation, the more that we can stay present, our kids will feel that and they will learn how to be more regulated themselves. They'll learn how to be more peaceful and present themselves. And they're just going to feel a lot more love from us. So that's, I think, the first start of using a tool like this. It can help us just be with them more.
Yeah, I agree. And not necessarily telling them every single thing that's going on.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, I am a firm believer in it's a really interesting line to separate out what they need to know versus what they shouldn't versus right because you want to be so honest with your kids about everything, but in this scenario, that can create some really challenging feelings for them
Mhm.
because they're kids and they have to belong to both parents and in these situations I think the best advice is to keep the adult stuff out of the kids stuff and let them figure it out later.
Yeah, and they always do. Like they can look back. They're
Yeah.
going to look back with adult eyes on their childhood and see
Yeah.
who was there, who, shielded them from all of the things, who showed up, who was like, you know what? That's fine. Go to your dad, like have fun, even though they're like, I hate your dad. Like your dad's terrible. Like, or your other
Yeah.
parent's terrible. And it's just like, I'm a big, huge advocate of like, let the kids be kids.
Yeah.
Like it's not their job to be your confidant. It's not their job to be your emotional therapist or your divorce coach or your, co-parenting thing. Like you've got best interest for that. Like don't run it through the kids. Like and don't make them choose sides. Like I think that's the worst thing
Yeah.
that you can do.
Absolutely. And, just creating a home that you yourself would have wanted to live in. A lot of us arriving in this situation, maybe our homes weren't all that great, and maybe we learned some bad habits from that. And so, how could you create a safe home, even if your kids are going back and forth between two different homes with completely different parenting philosophies? You can show them what it's like to live in the home that you want to grow up in. and that where a home where they are loved unconditionally and supported, and where they feel seen and able to be themselves. Like, these are the gifts that you can give them. And yeah, it sucks to like disengage from trying to control anything at the other house, but that's really where peace comes. And eventually they will, as they grow, get more power and being able to dictate how they're treated. And I think it's just good all around to show them um, the possibilities of what their future might look like. Here they have two homes. Do I feel better at this home or this home?
Mhm.
And then from there, they can build a life that they want to live.
Yeah, I agree. And you touched on something that I think is really important. And I see this more from stepmoms that I talk to as opposed to like their partners, like the stepmom's partner, is I find that the stepmom is more concerned about controlling the other house. Well, we agreed on these parenting rules, or we agreed on these expectations, and they are not following them to a T. Can you believe that, Soul? Like, that is insane. She said she would do them and she's not. Why would she not do them? And
Oh,
you're like,
it's the worst. It's the worst
it
because
is the
all you
worst.
want is you want the best for your kids. You
Yeah.
like you have an idea of what makes a good parent and what makes a good environment, and you have these rules, maybe even a parenting plan, and then time and again, the rules aren't followed, or you hear things coming back from the kids. You're like, I want to wring their neck.
Yeah.
But that doesn't help anyone,
Hmm.
right? The best thing you can do, I think, as a step parent or as a co-parent, is to try to disengage from having any control over the other home, and just recognize that this all works out in the wash later on. That and your kids grow up, they're gonna know what feels good and they'll be okay.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's really great advice. Thanks. So if you're a stepmom and you're listening, like it's all going to come out in the wash. Like everyone's going to understand. Everyone's going to see it. And they
Yeah.
might not see it right away, and that's fine, right? Like I said, my stepkids are grown. They don't see
Yeah.
everything right away, but in years past, like they're like, "Oh, wait." They can connect dots themselves too. And you don't and I always say to stepmoms, it's not your responsibility to point out faults of the other person, whether it's your
Oh, it's
partner or the other parent. Like we don't need to get into the, well, do you know what they did to us? Like that doesn't help anyone.
it can really isolate the kids and make
Yeah.
them confused, and it's not really helpful because they have biological needs to be and belong to both parents. There's so many stories and studies done on kids that were abused, and the types of relationships they still love their
Hmm.
abuser, and it's so sad, but that's essentially what happens in these scenarios. And you just, as much as you can, I'm not talking about abuse, but as much as you can, you need to learn how to let their rules be their rules over there, and then focus on, how do I make the best home for them to come back to? How can I create safety and peace and security for them so that they can learn what that feels like? And then when they're an adult and they're building their life, maybe those little seeds that I planted, 20 years ago will sprout into them creating an even better life for their kids. And
Yeah, I agree. Because at the end of the day, all you can control is you and your house.
yeah, yeah,
And I can
yeah.
barely control myself. Like, and you want me to rent somebody else's house too? I mean, I could try, but why? For what? Okay.
Yeah, just let it drop the rope.
Yeah. I have a few questions for you, just like general, like more personal, like about you specifically. Like, what
Sure.
lessons do you, because I know that I did a little bit of research on you, or like into like tech and you've worked elsewhere at other big names. Like, how do you feel like your time there, like, translated over into like, okay, I'm going to build this app. Like, how is this going to go? Like, it needs to be purpose driven. I want to help co-parents. Like, did you feel like you had a really solid foundation for like how tech actually worked?
That's a good question. Yeah, I've always been an entrepreneur. I've always started from the place of, oh, there's a problem I want to solve, and just learn how to build it. And I started my first company when I was 14, and just
What?
kind of went from there. Yeah.
Cool. What did you build?
Oh, that one was a funny one. My very first app was a little pop-up for your Mac or Windows computer. It arrived on a floppy disk. And this was even before the internet, so like
Yeah.
a mail order kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it just popped up a positive message for your day when you started up your computer.
That's cute.
Yeah, funny little thing. And through my career, I ended up at Google. And a lot of people would say, "Oh gosh, that's like mid-career, peak career. Let's go. Let's keep running." At that point, my first child was on the way, and ever since I was a kid, I knew that I wanted to be a dad. I don't know why, but I
Mhm.
just knew that that was who I wanted to. I really wanted to step into that, and so I decided to quit my job and become a full-time dad.
Did people think you were
And
crazy?
oh, absolutely. Society does not, as much as we like to pretend like we do, be making a shift from being a career-driven dad or career-driven guy to being a full-time dad is a weird shift
Yeah.
because people treat you differently. My former colleagues definitely, like, you
Really?
could feel why are you doing this? Things are going so well. I think it causes them to question their own decision of
Yeah.
like how hard they work, right? And it was hard. It was hard to step into that new role, but it was a really good reset. And that reset, I think, played a big hand in the shift. So before, I was always focused on what are the opportunities out there. I was building novel things, but I never really had the type of experience that I do now with Best Interest. I am building a product that is helping people in the way that I really needed to support 6 years ago. And so I took my pain and I turned it into a healing product for people. And then I'm receiving messages, not kidding you, every week, people write me and say, "This has changed my life."
No,
And I'm
that's
like, "Oh my God, that's so cathartic. Jeez, that's amazing." And I will never build anything less meaningful,
yeah.
right? I really feel like this is a vocation and a calling,
Mhm.
more than just a job.
I get that. Yeah. I can relate
Yeah,
to that. Yeah.
yeah,
That makes a lot of sense to me. Like that really like resonates. I'm like, I feel like I was called to like be married to my husband, to become a
yeah.
mom, and then like to become a coach. And then I'm like, this is crazy because I would never have thought that I would have ended up here. Probably you were like, I would never have thought that I would end up like a co-parenting app. So how do you
Grooming
balance?
co-parents.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And trying to make it work and like doing all the things. So how do you balance like being a dad and leading a tech company, building an app? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, it's a work in progress. I'm
Tell me.
still I'm
Tell me.
still
Yeah.
trying to figure it out. I mean, I have always, even before I had kids, I've always struggled with um being a workaholic, being a perfectionist. My mind loves to work.
Are we the same
But
person? Like, I
yeah,
feel like
right.
the same person.
But in the time that I took off, that was actually a really important part of my healing journey because I purposefully took it off. I wasn't doing consulting, I wasn't
Oh.
getting my mind occupied elsewhere. I was just focused fully on being a dad. And that was a really hard personal transition because I felt completely useless sometimes.
Mhm.
But that was helpful because it allowed me to be a lot more bored. And then it became a healing journey of understanding myself better, understanding why I feel so lonely and those sorts of things, and having the time to process and to go to therapy for the first time and learn more about my emotions. I mean, I was a guy who didn't really, I was sensitive, but I never really felt emotions. I never cried. And this whole journey going through divorce and co-parenting and becoming a dad, it's really opened me up. And I'm really grateful for that process. Um, and now I'm losing track of the original question, but
How do you balance like being a dad and like
yeah,
being
exactly. So balancing for me is knowing that I carve out time to be present with them, and even don't caretake for them. So my son is at that phase where he is really wanting my attention all the time. He doesn't want to do things on his own. He wants me to do them with him, Legos, whatever. He wants me to be right there with him. And that's not always something that I can do. Sometimes things get in my way and I do need to handle them right away. Or sometimes my mind is kind of elsewhere or I'm exhausted.
Mhm.
And in those situations, what I tend to try to do is I try to either enroll him in something that I want to do, or if I'm just really, really exhausted, I offer him my attention. So I just say, hey, I'm not really in the mood to build that with you right now, but can I watch you?
Mhm.
Honestly, that's really what he wanted anyway.
Mhm.
So, he just wanted someone to be there with him. And so offering that is something that's easy for me, and it's not caretaking for what he wants,
Mhm.
and it's authentic. And I really believe in being authentic with our kids.
Yeah, I think that's really great. Okay, I have two last questions for you.
Yeah.
Where do you think, like, in an ideal world, in an ideal situation, where do you think courts could really benefit from having like AI, like, or like best interest apps, like in the system? Like, how much more beneficial do you think it would be? Or like, how would they integrate them?
Well, it depends on how deep you want to go with me on this one.
Oh my gosh, how much time do you have?
Yeah. So philosophically, I'm an AI optimist. I know we have a lot of fear about it
Mhm.
because understandably it's changing everything. And I am worried that our culture, our economy are not going to move fast enough to adopt the new changes. But
Great.
with that dose of, understandable fear, I have a lot of optimism about what AI can do. And I see it in best interest and I see it in other products um, that are sort of AI for good. I think that AI can step in as potentially one day a judge. Judges, you hear so many bad stories. They're people, right? They have
Mhm.
their own history, they have their own moods. They try to pretend like they're not people, but
But they had their own
they
morning with their
are.
own kids. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I envision a day where AI can be an arbiter of conflict and reducing conflict more efficiently, without needing to involve a whole family court system with lawyers and judges. Honestly, it's a fact-based thing, and AI can really help with fact-based things.
Yeah, I agree. I think I've never even like thought about it like from that perspective, but I think it would speed up the process a lot more because the
Yeah,
judge isn't like reviewing all of these cases, you're trying to take notes, trying to like whatever, and you they got 10 cases that morning and yeah, it's just a lot.
yeah.
I
I
think that's
think
a really awesome.
taking the emotion out of it when we're
Mhm.
making decisions that impact kids and impact parents can really help. And I think if anything, our current system is far too inefficient
Mhm.
and does not make decisions quickly enough to help those outcomes. So I could see that be one way that I think that all law moves very slowly. So AI is going to be absorbed quickly in other places, and I think the law is going to take a long time to
Yeah.
adjust.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. Okay, so if somebody's listened to this and they're like, "All right, I like best interest or I'm interested in it," where do they go to find out about it? I will link everything, but you can give them a little bit more information.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can find us on the App Store or the Play Store. We're on Android or iOS. It's free to download, it's free to use. We also have a free trial of the AI features. So check it out. And if you have any feedback for me, I'm always open to hearing your feedback or thoughts. So just shoot me an email at founder@bestinterest.app.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me on today.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this week's episode. If anything was helpful or resonated with you, please share it on social media and tag me. I'm just at Alicia Crasco. And if you could leave a 5-star rating and a review while you're at it, that would also be really helpful. And if you find yourself struggling with your stepmom journey and you want a little bit more support without the hefty price tag of coaching, you might want to check out the Stepmom Side community, which is my own private community for stepmoms, where you get to connect with other stepmoms around the world and myself, where I hold weekly office hours and monthly group coaching. It's kind of like you have your own personal coach in your own back pocket. Again, without that hefty price tag. See you next week.